two, one.
So, back to the technology show.
It is the technology show where we translate geek into regular speak. I'm your host, Brett Levy, and I apologize that I've been absent for so many weeks. I was traveling in Japan. I think, if I remember, I did do a quick little update teaser while I was there. And then I was sick, and then it was my birthday, so I just kind of got sidetracked. But as I say, the show must go on. The good news is that I actually had more time to play and review what I'm going to be talking about today in Things with a Z. So without further ado, let's bring up the presentation. Let's get the slides going. If you're watching the show, you will see on the screen now the picture of the awesome new Google Pixel 8a. So I've called the show the A-list for a reason, because it's A for awesome. Now, the first question that is always asked, and this was no different for the 7 and the 6A predecessors, is why does Google launch an A device? Now, I can't speak for Google because, well, I don't work there. But from what I've experienced, it's basically a chance to reignite the demand for the phone, maybe to tinker with it a bit too, which I'll go into a little bit more details now when we start going into some of the tech of the A. And the A normally releases at the halfway point. So if there's a year between the phones, like the 7 and the 8, or in this case, maybe the 8 and the 9, then the A will come out. It comes out around about the 6-month mark, and this was no different. We've had the A now for a couple of weeks, and I think if I remember correctly, the 8 and the 8 Pro launched in about October last year. So it's been about 7 months between the devices. Now, why do I like the Pixel 8a? Well, first off, if you've been watching or listening to my show for the last few years, then you'll know that the Pixel Pro is my gaming phone. So the 7 and the 8 Pro, I had the 6 Pro as well. So sorry, 6, 7, and 8 Pro. Currently on 8 Pro is my gaming phone. So I already have a soft spot for the device and the form factor. I have been privileged to have reviewed the 6, 7, and 8 series of Pixels, and year on year, they just keep getting better. Now, it's not designed to replace the 8. A lot of people say, well, you know, is the 8 going to get discontinued? Should I not buy an 8? That's not it. No, not at all. In fact, if you go to the Google store, you will see that there are 3 devices to choose from. So you can still get the Google 8, Google 8 Pro, and now obviously the 8a. The A series, though, is often labeled as a budget device. Now, at least this is the case when looking at other brands that launch an A. But with the Pixels, they've never really been budget phones. They've just been well-priced and well-positioned. If you compare them with some of the other marques or flagships in the Android ecosystem, you'll find generally that the Pixel is, one, well-priced in comparison to some of the others, but more importantly, it's always packed with features. And these features are generally only available to the Pixel, at least for a period of time. So normally it'll be shipped with the first copy of the latest version of Android. The Pixel 8a is slightly bigger, slightly, than the 8, but its screen is actually slightly smaller. So this is one of the things that I noticed straight out when doing a comparison. The major difference, though, is the back is plastic. So unlike the Pixel 8 and the Pixel 8 Pro, which uses a glass back, that is probably why the A or A phones in the range is always labeled as the budget devices, because they have saved money on the casing. You know, it's obviously a lot more expensive to shot a phone with glass on both sides than it is to put plastic or even an aluminium or metal. That shouldn't deter, because most people would generally put their phones in a cover. And once the phone is in the cover, you actually can't feel what it is made out of. So rather spend money on a good cover that feels good, feels comfortable. If you're like me and you don't like to put phones in a cover, you will notice the difference in feeling. And as I said, I have a Pixel 8 Pro as my gaming phone. And the back and the feel of that phone definitely has a more professional build to it. But that's not what we're talking about today. So if we look at the 8A and why it does come as a really good device when it sits in the middle of the two, it shares the same GPU and CPU as the 8. So without getting into tech speak and going into specs, basically the insides are exactly the same. Same processor, same processing speed, same clock speed, etc., etc. The part that's always been weird, and I actually did a little bit of research on the 7 and 7A in prep for this show, and it was the same. The 64 megapixel versus 50 megapixel and 13 megapixel versus 12 megapixel back-facing cameras on the 8A would, in paper, make it a better camera phone. I do need to stop at this point, and I've said this many times before when I talk about cameras. I'm not a photographer. I've never professed to be a photographer. I don't get into the nitty gritties with a little F sign. I don't know what that means. I don't know, whatever it means. The point that I'm making is that it doesn't necessarily make it a better camera phone because it's got a bigger or more megapixels. It does come down to the software and the hardware as well. Front-facing camera on the 8A is a 13 megapixel versus the 10.5 on the 8. Now, that's something to consider. A lot of people take selfies. A lot of people are holding their phones and doing front-facing photography. You will get a better picture from the front camera than you would on the 8. From the 8A, sorry, you get a better picture than you would from the 8. So that is something to consider. And this is what I was saying, is that the reason to consider the 8A is from a holistic point of view. Packaging might not be the same as the 8 or the 8 Pro, but the camera on the front's definitely better. Same processors on the inside, etc., etc. So unless you are a professional photographer or someone that's actually, really knows what they're doing, hey, Elon, then you might find reason to look at maybe the 8 or the 8 Pro. For myself, and probably for most people, I couldn't tell the difference. And I did a side-by-side. I've got both devices. Pictures were the same to me. The lighting was the same. And I think the most important thing as well is what the software does. And I'll talk about that just at the end of the segment. When looking at the battery, it was a 4,492 milliamp battery. I think the Google Pixel 8 was slightly bigger at like 4,500 and some change. So there wasn't really a difference in battery size, which obviously means there isn't a difference in capacity. However, there's no reverse charging on the 8A. Now, reverse charging is when you can actually share your battery with another device. Personally, I would never do that. I'm a bit too stingy on my battery, and I'm not going to share it with anyone. If you're running out of battery, carry a battery pack. I'm not going to jumpstart you. So that wouldn't have been a reason either for me to not look at it. So the question, I suppose, to maybe finish up the segment or finish the things with a Z review is, do you go Pixel 8 or Pixel 8A? Now, I very rarely talk price on my shows, and there's multiple reasons for that. But in this instance, I actually have to bring it up because of the budget positioning of the 8A being a big factor. There's about a 350 Australian dollar difference between the two. So for anyone that's wanting the power and features of a Pixel, but doesn't have over $1,000 to spend, I'm talking Australian, then the 8A is for you. That's basically why Google would release the A, and probably will continue to do so for some time to come. I did mention earlier that it doesn't matter only about the camera, but also about the software. In this case, the super cool software features that are available, I reviewed when I did the 8 and 8 Pro, 6-7 months ago. So please go back and watch or listen to that show. But if you don't want to go back or you don't recall it, the main thing is Audio Magic Eraser, which is an app that will actually remove annoying sounds. I can hear my wife going, "Can you remove his sound?" while he's talking. Will remove like annoying background sounds when you're shooting video. Photo and blur. If you're watching the show, I've actually put a still up on the screen. It was pretty cool. Like both faces were blurred, and then the little line goes along when you're running the photo blur app, and the lady's face is unblurred. So if you're actually watching the show, you'll see what I'm talking about. The before picture, her face was as blurry as his face. If you're listening to the show, use the imagination, right? Was blurry before, not blurry anymore. Magic Editor has been around for a while. That was a Pixel only tool. It's been opened up to pretty much everyone, including Apple users. If you use Google Photos, by the way, as an iPhone user, you can actually get Magic Editor as well. So you can start removing annoying things that shouldn't be there. And then the other thing that they include was portrait light. And this is basically allows you to change light and light situations inside your pics. So the software is definitely cool. And that's probably also what makes Pixel a favorable choice when it comes to looking at the Android ecosystem. So that was the review on the Google Pixel 8a. Yeah, I have the black one. I don't know if I held it up earlier, but there it is there. I got the black one. It comes in like a super cool blue, like a light cyan. There's probably a Pixel name for it. And I'm sorry to the guys at Google. It was in the press kit and I didn't read it, but it's like a cool baby powder bluey color. And then like an off-white color as well. So I think there's 3 colors available in Australia. I'm not sure if there's other colors around the world. Right, where do we go next? Tech news, NVIDIA. So when the whole bit mining thing came to a bit of a crash and gaming computers and highly sought after gaming graphic cards, GPUs, all of a sudden became available, I thought that NVIDIA was probably going to be in a little bit of trouble from a company. But lo and behold, valuation at $3.3 trillion now makes it the most valuable company in the world. That puts Apple third and Microsoft second. And the reason for this is AI. I mean, you've got to be living under a rock or maybe on another planet if you're not following what's going on in the world of AI at the moment. Just by the way, quickly jumping back to Google, the Pixel phones have Gemini, which is Google's own AI software built into it. So, that would be another reason to look at it. I personally prefer Gemini to ChatGPT. I think I've actually done a show on that before. And if I haven't, let me know. And I will do a show as to why I prefer the one versus the other. Anyway, so NVIDIA now is the most valuable company in the world because of the demands of AI. You need a really big graphics processing plant to compute to that level. So well done to them. Speaking of money, so Mr. Musk got the nod from the Tesla shareholders for his approximate $56 billion payout. That would make it the biggest CEO compensation package in history. Now, it doesn't stop there. Elon carries on winning because he was also being given the green light to reincorporate Tesla in Texas away from Delaware. Got to ask the question, is he moving it to Texas because the gigawatt factory is there and SpaceX is there? Or is it because Delaware was where he was told he can't get his $56 billion payout? Don't know. Netflix house. Now, this is not about your house and where you can and can't watch Netflix. And I'm saying this because if you're not watching the show, you won't see the picture of what is a big shopping mall with a big sign that says Netflix house on it. They're going to be opening in 2025 in Dallas and at the King of Prussia, at the Mall of the King of Prussia. I think it's called the Mall of America. I've been there. It's very close to Philadelphia in Pennsylvania. And Netflix is basically they've been a little bit like skittish around this thing, but from what I've been able to read and understand, they're going to be taking over fairly large spaces inside malls, like where department stores were or are and maybe were battling. Details aren't so clear, but they're going to be offering customers like immersive experiences, merchandise, food, like restaurants experiences. And if you think about what Netflix has been doing for the last probably 6-7 years and the content they've been producing, all of that stuff. I mean, let's just take Stranger Days, right? The licensing and merchandising deals in Stranger Things is massive, and they've got other shows that, I mean, The Last Airbender, they did a version of. There would obviously be merch rights and so on. And then your immersive experiences. Imagine going into an experience inside one of their shows. I mean, the funny thing now that I'm thinking about it while I'm actually saying this is that Netflix house is going to be in shopping centers. And the first thing I said was Stranger Things. And that was shot, like that whole scene was shot inside an abandoned shopping center. So it makes sense, right? So let's see what happens. The only question, though, is when a totally digital company is looking at a physical footprint, there's got to be risks with that as well. Now you've got a fixed overhead and a fixed infrastructure cost, whereas at the moment it's just bandwidth and storage. But Apparently 2025, we're going to see the first of 2 Netflix houses. And then I think it's the last thing that I've got on tech news. There's been a warning from the FBI to consumers against using public phone charging stations in order to avoid exposing the devices to malicious software. So, like when you go to airports and there's that plug-in where you can just plug your USB wire directly into it. That's kind of what they're talking about. Now, I mentioned this on a show quite a while back, but if the FBI mentions it, then obviously it's worthwhile readdressing it, right? The suggestion that I made then, and I'm going to make it again now, is that if you're going to charge your device, charge it with a USB wire or USB-C, whichever one it is, connected into a plug point that you own, and then put that into a plug. So in other words, don't take the USB wire and plug it directly into a public USB-C, USB or USB-C port. In these ports, bad actors can put software that can trigger off a little mini drive or even a Raspberry Pi. They can put a little wireless dongle inside there and then take control of your device or implant malware. So it's just about being vigilant. And I think while staying on that topic as well, don't click links. So many people are still saying, oh, I clicked this link and they wiped up my bank account. If anything is going to be about sensitive information, like your bank asking you to update, or I mentioned Netflix, like Netflix telling you there's a problem with your credit card. Those emails have been going around for years. They're rubbish, okay? Your thing will just stop working on your TV. It will say, there's a problem on your account, please log in. They're not going to send you a text or an email. And if they do, you can probably just check the email address and it'll show you it says Netflix. It doesn't say xyzscammers.com. But the rule of thumb is open a browser. Don't be lazy. Just type netflix.com or name of your bank.com. It really doesn't take that long, but you're guaranteed that you are actually going to that facility's website and therefore protecting yourself from a malicious attack. Right, that takes us to the end of tech news, and we're going into Are You Game. Now, I mentioned that it was my birthday recently, and that was one of my excuses for not doing a show. So I got spoiled for my birthday by Kade and Grace. That's Kade's girlfriend, and Kade's my son. And if you don't know that, welcome to the Technology Show, because I talk about him all the time. I was given the Fallout Special Anthology. So it's basically, and if you're watching the screen, you can see I've put a picture of it up. But it's one of the nukes from Fallout, and it's got like 7 little cards inside, and they collector's editions. And on the back of each card is a game unlock code for PC. So including all the premium collectibles, all the add-ons, everything. So I have been gifted all 7 Fallout games. I've only played 2. So I'm probably going to have to send a memo to my wife and say, see ya. And I think Are You Game for the next few weeks is probably going to be Fallout. So that was a super cool present. And besides obviously being like a little collectible and in a pack, the nuke itself actually has an audio sound of a bomb, so really cool present. Thanks, guys. Yeah, I guess I'm going to have to commit some time to playing Fallout again. I do have to say, I did talk about it on a show. If you haven't watched Fallout on Amazon Prime, you are missing out. I'm not a huge fan of when they turn video games into TV shows. Halo was an absolute fail as far as I'm concerned. But Fallout was fantastic. They've done such a good job. And in fact, I think the show was renewed for a season 2 within like a week of launch. So yeah, if you have Amazon Prime, get on, watch Fallout. It really is good. And if you've played the game, I'd love to hear your thoughts about it. If you agree that it is a good complement to the game. But that's it for Are You Game. And that means it would take us to a Q&A. So what have we got for Q&A this week? Well, the question that came through that I thought I'd talk about was, when can I download iOS 18? Now, I didn't discuss any of Apple's developers' announcements today because, well, today was all about Google and Google Pixel and all the cool Google stuff. So I didn't want to get into Apple, what was called the Developers Day. That was about 2 weeks ago. And also, it is fairly old news. You've probably read up about iOS 18 and all the cool things. I can summarize it for you with one word, AI. Was that 2 words? One abbreviated word. Apple's finally put their cards on the table for what they're going to do with AI, what kind of features are going to come out in iOS 18. But the question is, when can I download it? So the answer is actually multi-pronged. You can download it now if you have a developer's account. I have a developer's account and I can download and have downloaded, but please. So if I'm speaking to developers now on the show, you would know this. You never ever download a beta onto your primary device. That's just stupid. Okay, so don't do it. Don't be stupid. But if you don't have a developer's account, I'm led to believe that July is when the public beta will come out. Now, considering that the new iPhone is probably 4 months away, like October, November is when it normally comes out, or as Apple would say, if it comes out. That means it's going to be very buggy. 4 months of development until the software is ready for launch, official launch, sorry. So please, again, if you're going to download the beta and have fun, it's cool playing with the betas and the functions, but get a secondary device. I've had so many people over the years say to me, I downloaded a beta device, I can't roll it back, my phone's bricked. If your phone's out of warranty, you're going to have to go and pay Apple to do it for you. So don't be silly. Don't download a beta onto your primary device. I also normally talk about iOS, and I always say 0.1. So what that means is when iOS launches, it will come out as 18.02. Then it'll probably jump to like 0.05, 0.07. I personally do not download on my primary device until I see 18.1. So any version of iOS, I wait for the 0.1. At 0.1, you're pretty much guaranteed the bugs are done. Not saying that you have to wait for them. Generally, the operating system will launch with the new handset. So if Apple's prepared to launch it, it should be good to go. It's just a personal preference for me. As I said, I don't do it till 0.1. So hopefully that does answer the question. If that was Q&A, then it's going to basically mean we're at the end of the show. I do apologize for the radio silence. It's not that I don't love doing my show and I don't want to do my show. It's just all kinds of things came in the way. I keep saying I will get better. I will get better. I promise I'll get better. I've actually already been playing with the next review that I'm doing for quite some time. It requires some time to play with, to really understand and appreciate the device. I'll be sharing that next. So, yep, look out for that. But until next time, keep your screens clean and your knobs shiny.